Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are listening from. Welcome to another and brand new episode of Women in Blockchain Talks. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We have a female founder in the house, but she's not necessarily connected to blockchain. Let me introduce you to Lou Lee. Lu Lee is the founder of Blooming Founders and Lunar Talents. And she will get into explain exactly what Blooming Founders and Lunar Talents is in a moment. She's also the author of Dear Female Founder, 66 Letters of Advice from Women Entrepreneurs Who Have Made 1 billion in revenue. Woo, 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 woo. Oh yes, we can do it. Blooming Founders is a small business with big ambition. I love that. When I talk about Women in Blockchain Talks, I'm like, we're local, but we're global, baby. So with big ambitions, helping female founders and diverse teams succeed. And you know, one of the key words within Women in Blockchain Talks is all about inclusivity and diversity. So welcome, Luli. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. Would you like to share more about Blooming Founders, what you do, and where it came from?
Of course, Lavinia. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Blooming Founders really started now about 6 years ago. Time flies. And the origins of Blooming Founders is really kind of based on when I moved to London in 2014. And I wanted to start up my own business. London was the most entrepreneurial city in Europe. And I just want to kind of like, go there and find my luck in that sense. And as I was trying to find my luck and build my networks, I did not know anybody in London when I moved there. I attended a lot of events, as you do, and just kind of like trying to see what's going on in the city. And very quickly, I realized that all the events like in the startup scene were very male dominated, right? And it's not that I have a problem kind of specifically with that. I had a corporate career before. I'm used to male dominated environments, but I just felt that, why is it like that? And why is there sort of nothing kind of modern and cool for female founders? And I thought that, I'm probably not the only woman, trying to kind of like find her luck basically in London in the entrepreneurial space. So I started a meetup group actually in the very beginning, just like on the side, trying to meet other entrepreneurial women over drinks. And that grew over time. So after about a year, I then decided to quit my consulting jobs. I had a consulting gig when I moved to London to, pay the bills and such. I decided to focus on that area of supporting female entrepreneurs because that meetup group within a year from 0 to 1,500 people. We had regular meetups. Sometimes, we had like 50 people at our meetups. I was like, well, that's actually a lot of people. And I decided to kind of professionalize the support and, what we could be building, right? Now, I did not know what, it could be. I just started where I was. And I think, it's kind of like advice I share with a lot of early stage founders as well, because everybody's trying to kind of think through everything. And sometimes it's just not possible. Sometimes you just have to start where you are and just take the next step.
Yep.
So what I did was that, okay, we were already running events. So let's professionalize our events. Let's move from a bar in Soho to Google Campus in Shoreditch, and let's organize, more educational talks, workshops, networking events, etc., etc. So that was the beginning of Blooming Founders. We've built then, from those events, we built a community. I started a newsletter that I still to this day send out every week, and it's just everything kind of like happened from there. And 3 years after that, we launched our co-working space and just did more events, conferences. Yeah, did a lot of things basically for the community. It was really, really exciting.
It does sound very exciting. Love the mission and love the growth, the organic growth. And I think it's fantastic that you saw something and you was led by your feeling, your intuition and your passion to create a space. And it's just grown from the 0 to 1,500. And that was obviously 5 years ago. So how many people do you have in your community now?
Yeah, so the definition of community is has changed over time, right? So this meetup group grew from 0 to 1,500 in the year before I officially launched Blooming Founders. Then we moved everything over to a Facebook community as well as the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And then we grew that. So the Facebook group then started from pretty much zero. We had like a couple hundred. Obviously, we converted, from the meetup group to Facebook, but it was just like a couple hundred. It was actually not that many people. I actually lost the majority of the community, which always happens actually when you sort of move platforms,
Yeah.
and that's just normal. But I think we restarted with about like 300, maybe 400. And then, we kind of kept on doing our events. And when people say like, we would like to stay in touch with the community, we would invite them to the Facebook group. So then the Facebook group started around 300, 400 and grew to 3,500 in the next kind of 2 to 3 years. The newsletter grew to kind of like equal, round about the amount. And yeah, and then what happened in 2000, oh my God, I need to like think, 18, I believe, is that, so I started Blooming Founders in 2015, right? So then over the next 3 years, until 2018, we were running a Facebook group. And at the height, that was about 3,500 people. And then I decided to shut down the Facebook group, which was kind of like a drastic decision back then, but mainly because I did not have the feeling that we were still in touch with the community because of the algorithm changes, because people, like Facebook were promoting the group product to random people on the internet. And as a result, people would start to apply to join the group, et cetera. And because we were, inclusive, we were like, okay, great. Like, we have some questions, you have these like entry questions. And then if you, if you're like a normal human being with entrepreneurial ideas, then great, you're welcome. But what it actually led to is actually we got a lot of people who did not even realize that we were a business that was hosting real live events and what we were actually doing in our business. And over time, I only noticed it when I was a bit too late. Like the dynamics in the group kind of like tilted.
Yeah.
And it ended up being like, a group of people that really appreciated, what was happening in the group, but it takes a lot of time and effort to maintain a good group, basically, right? And I think that I saw like a disconnect between that and what we were actually looking to build as a business, and it just like didn't really make sense as a business anymore. So I took the decision to shut it down. And after that, we just focused on our workspace membership. So we used to have a workspace which we launched in 2017. So that was basically a year in until I shut down the Facebook groups. Like, look, there's so much happening in this workspace that I want to dedicate my focus to those people who also are paying me money to be in the workspace and are also expecting certain things, right? And then the newsletter, right? So then we started focusing on the workspace and the newsletter. The workspace, unfortunately, obviously has been hit by the pandemic. So the workspace is no more, unfortunately. We're still offering a virtual office. So if anybody wants to register a business and you can work anywhere in the world now, we can still offer you a virtual office that you can register with HMRC, as a trading address in Shoreditch. If you don't want to have your personal private address publicized, really important, actually. But then, the newsletter has about 6,000 people now. So that's what I call our community now. I hope that makes sense. It was a very long-winded answer to your question.
No, it completely makes sense, and you're absolutely right. It takes a lot of time and effort to not only create a community but maintain it, nurture it, and let it become a thriving entity of its own in a way. But it's quite interesting when you talk about how you started, because Women in Blockchain Talk started on Meetup as well, and we still have a Meetup page. And from there, my first event for the community, and it wasn't under Women in Blockchain Talks, because, cut long story short, I'd taken over this Meetup group and I thought I'd cancelled all the events. But she had the person who owned it before had put it on like a repeat. So I went back in there just after some time and I found there was an event with 70 people signed up. And it was women in blockchain, but it wasn't women in blockchain talks, right? So
Mhm.
my first ever event for the community was held at Google campus.
Well, there you go.
So,
There you go.
there's a little bit of synergy there. And then from there, I still wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And then I decided through different conversations with individuals that, it's going to be women in blockchain talks, because I wanted it to be women talking, using their voices, sharing their voices. So women in blockchain talks. So we're talking.
Mhm.
And then it's just grown from there. And we do have a community, and we do have a newsletter, so it's quite interesting to hear your journey. So a number of people may be wondering, okay, so why this podcast today with Luli? Well, the key thing, as many people know, is that we launched our campaign 50,000 women into blockchain in May. And there's different avatars within the campaign. It's a quiz led campaign, because I find that quizzes are a nice way for people to learn about a new concept, new subject matter, without it being overwhelming. Um, and so there is a key focus, or a big focus, on helping people who want to pivot their career into blockchain. But there's also many individuals who want to be founders, who want to be entrepreneurial. And so I think it's really important to support those individuals as well. And one of the ways that we're looking to do that is launch a leadership program in anticipation for the global Women in Blockchain Talks chapters. So that means there will be smaller chapters around the world, bringing blockchain information to different areas, of course, of the world. And also, for me, inclusivity and diversity isn't just about culture, it's also about languages, so being able to bring what we do to another part of the world, but in a different language, is very powerful for me. So I know that you're very busy in your community. You've got an online growth summit, June the 22nd to the 24th. Do you want to tell me more about that?
Yeah, so Online Growth Summit is our new event format. I mean, we used to run so many events in person. I think in 2018, at the height of like everything, 2018, 2019, we probably ran like 40 to 50 events in a year, which is pretty much like every week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been like so busy, very exciting though. But obviously with the pandemic, in-person events have not been, very popular with people. So we are working through a pivot and a repositioning of Blooming Founders. At the moment, is actually going to be turning into an online school for bootstrapping founders, which is meant to be very inclusive to people, entrepreneurial people who, for whatever reason, are not able to fundraise, or maybe don't want to fundraise to begin with,
Yeah.
and still want to learn how to build and grow their businesses, right? And the Online Growth Summit is our biannual event, 3 days in the afternoons, which should be digestible. I mean, personally, I can't sit through like an 8-hour, like full day kind of event on Zoom. So we're trying to make it more palatable, and it's structured across 3 days and 3 themes. The first day is going to be about audience growth. I mean, with any business that you're starting, you have to build your audience, your community.
Mm-hmm.
And then how can day 2 would be on conversion and revenue growth. So how do you convert certain people in your community into actually paying customers and paying clients? And then the third day is going to be about operational excellence, because once you actually sort of manage to turn people into revenue, turn prospect into revenue, I should say, then, you want to grow, you want to do more. And then, the whole back end and admin side of things of your business is going to grow more as well. And you want to, figure out how to do that, how to maximize your profits, how to hire people into your business. Maybe you run different initiatives because you're multi-passionate. I mean, lots of people I meet actually are multi-passionate people, and you just have like your different initiatives and ventures basically in parallel, and you want to build all of them basically, right? So how do you do that? And so that's kind of like what we will be talking about for this edition of the Growth Summit. The next one will be probably end of October, early November. So that's kind of like we get into like a biannual cadence where, people can learn from experts. All of our experts are operators or founders who have been there and done that.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of get like the real life stuff basically. So it's not fluffy, but really kind of like, okay, how did you build your brand ambassador program, for example, right? What results did it give you? How did you incentivize people,
Yeah.
et cetera, right? That's just like an example.
Mm.
So that's the Online Growth Summit happening June 22nd to 24th. There's if you kind of search on Eventbrite, Online Growth Summit, I'm pretty sure you can find it.
Don't worry. We'll put the link in the show notes so that people who are interested can go and have a look. Is it a ticketed event or is it a virtual free event?
Yeah, no, it is a ticketed event. We did the first installation of Online Growth Summit last year for free, but we found with all, online free events, the dropout rate is huge, basically. And I just feel like, we put in a lot of work, me and my team, like into putting the event on. So we're charging a ticket, but it's not, huge. Like it's not like compared to if you look at blockchain industry conferences are like $500 or something like that, right? I mean, our early bird tickets for the entire 3 days are £45. So
It's
it should
very
be
cost,
sort of like,
and we
accessible
and
to
also
people.
if you want to be a female founder, then you have to invest in yourself. And also, if you are a female founder, then you have to look about monetizing. Monetizing is not a dirty word. It's a way for you to uh, make sure your value is appreciated,
Yeah.
and then when as you grow, then you can help others. So I totally understand. And I have to say, as a female founder myself, your event sounds amazing, particularly the second event when you're just talking about people who have put together a brand ambassador program, how it works, what works, because these are things that we really need to know and understand. So I do think it's great what your community stands for. Tell us a little bit more about Lunar Talents. What's Lunar Talents?
Yeah, Lunar Talents is a new brand that we have launched under the company. It is an activity that pretty much helped us get through the pandemic, right? Because our events were, got killed. Our co-working space got killed with the pandemic. Our revenue dropped from, whatever it was to like 95% less.
Yeah.
So there was essentially no business for the entire past year in this, in this area. And I had to come up with something new. So what I came up with is that, okay, well, we are in a pandemic. Everybody is, remote, but startups, still want to progress and build stuff, right? And on the other hand, you have students who had a big problem last year because all of their summer internships got canceled,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes, students are relying on internships to get academic credits as well because
Yeah.
it's part of their course. So that actually posed like a big problem to students, and they were all, freaking out a little bit. And so I saw an opportunity to connect students with startups for internship placements. And we just kind of like started doing that. It is a service for the company. So we're not charging the students. I know there's other agencies that basically sort of charge the students to kind of get them a placement, but I don't really think it's fair because, I mean, come on, they're students. I mean, why would they pay, right? So it's completely free for the students, and it's basically a recruitment service for companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good thing is kind of, that because some of our students are doing the placement for academic credits, you are actually not obliged to pay them because they're getting like the academic, sort of accreditation for it. And it's a very, very small niche of kind of like, sort of students that are actually eligible to do these things. But it is kind of like quite a good deal for the startup basically, right? Because they just pay us the fee of kind of finding that student. The students get the experience that they're looking for. They get the credits as well that they need to be able to graduate from their studies. And ultimately, it's pretty low cost for the startup, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, what you said before, if you're looking to build a business, you have to invest in knowledge, you have to invest in talent, you have to invest in your growth, right? So I think with Blooming Founders and Luna, we're trying to find like the most cost-effective, way to kind of do that, right? That gives you a high ROI, right? So So that's what we're still doing right now with Luna. So we're matching companies with students, and how it works is companies can register their interest with us if they're looking to hire an intern or a graduate, and then we would work with them to create the job description, which also sometimes is a bit of a daunting thing for early stage startups who have never hired. So we can support them in that process, and then we advertise, we screen. Like, you basically have to do nothing until we send you a CV or two to kind of look at, right? And then we set up the interviews, and if you're happy with the candidate, then you go ahead, which is great. If not, we'll just keep on looking, right? So that's basically what we're doing right now, and we've been doing it for like a year, which has been really interesting for me to like see the whole academic cycle, right? Because placing students is quite seasonal, I would say. Students obviously have different availabilities across the year of when they are actually open to do an internship or really kind of keen to do an internship even. So we've gone through like the first year and learned lots of things. The biggest thing I have learned actually is that the current education system doesn't teach people the skills they need to actually get a job anymore, and with a lot of small businesses kind of rising, right? And it's not just like corporate hiring anymore. They are actually looking for people with experience, right? Especially in this remote work context. Nobody wants to, like hire somebody that then they need to train remotely.
Yes.
So for anybody, if you're looking to maybe to enter the blockchain industry, like you really have to understand what the skills are that will actually enable you to do the job, and trying to build those skills before you apply, because otherwise, it's the chances that of you getting nowhere is fairly high. I have to say.
Well, what I would say about blockchain is that it's very innovative, it's very fast paced, and there are lots of opportunities to grow. What employers want to see is your willingness to learn and understand the technology. But many of the people coming into the space, they have the skill sets and the expertise, because with blockchain, it's not just about Women in Blockchain Talks in and of itself is non-technical, even though we have technical developers, coders, etc. in our community. But there is a number of jobs that are being created which are non-technical. So as long as you have the skill set and the expertise, then you can apply for those jobs. But of course, an employer is going to be looking for someone who has shown interest, has interest in blockchain, and not just looking to do the job, that is being requested. So
exactly. Yeah.
So with that being,
I think on that actually, sorry, on that, I think, the question is kind of like, I think what I see from a lot of students, okay, yes, I have an interest, I have but it still is a difference, right? So I'll give you an example in digital marketing. Most of our placements are around the digital marketing, and that's also an area where we focus on kind of like the growth area, right? So digital marketing, business development, and I interview a lot of students who tell me, I've studied business marketing. I know I kind of like, it's the things about. I know what the content calendar is for social media, for example. And then, you work with them, you give them the task, create a content calendar for next month, and they still sit there and then tell me, well, I don't know what to say, like in those captions, basically.
Yeah.
So
is that a lack of
it
creativity?
really is about like the execution.
Is that a lack of creativity or just a lack of confidence?
I think it basically is maybe lack of creativity, but maybe just like overall understanding of like they can't think themselves into the brand or into the business because they don't have that business experience maybe, so they can't put themselves into your shoes. And from that point, think about, okay, if I were the brand, because I am the brand now with this role, what do I communicate, right? And I think similar to blockchain, I mean, I started kind of getting into like the crypto space a couple months ago, and I do think I think if it's kind of like, how can you show that you're passionate about the space, right? It is a different world. It has different terminology, right? Like you have to know what people mean when people say these things. I give you an example. Like literally this morning, right? I was trying to stake some tokens, basically, right? And it is not that straightforward. Like I literally had to Google for a good amount of time to even realize, like, what do I even have to do to be able to stake these tokens, right? And why do I have to do all of that, basically? Like, what does it mean if I sort of put liquidity into, like, if I put like money into like the liquidity pool that then gets paired with my other tokens, so then I can stake those tokens, like, if I sort of say to, I mean, now I know, right? So now I can be like, oh yeah, like I added liquidity and then I stake those tokens. But for somebody who's new in the space, you might not even understand what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And
it sounds trivial. Okay, you add liquidity and then you stake your token. What does staking even mean? And how do you add liquidity? What does it mean that you add liquidity? What's the benefit for the cryptocurrency, basically, if you add liquidity, right? And why would they reward you with tokens?
Yeah.
Because of that, right? So all of these things, like I think everybody can get into it, right? And just like dabble around, and then you can like learn a lot more about like how the whole system works.
Yeah. So what I would say to that is that there's different platforms, like there's crypto.com, there's eToro, there's Gemini, and they are great platforms, exchange platforms that give great to, and even Coinbase gives great tutorials regarding staking and liquidity. So it really depends on what platform that you're doing it on, where you can get a bit more hand holding than other platforms, so to speak. So that's number one. Number two, you join a community. That's why you join a community, so you can ask those questions and get that support, which is what Women in Blockchain Talks is. And also with Women in Blockchain Talks, crypto, we focus more on blockchain technology and the application, the social impact, rather than crypto, even though, of course, crypto is a big part of blockchain. It's the low hanging fruit. And most people become aware of blockchain because of Bitcoin crypto. So, of course, there's an element of focus on that. So within the community, you can get support on or help. We have the technical people and the crypto traders and what have you. But you're absolutely right. And this is the reason why the campaign is created in a way that people can just start getting, if it's their first introduction to blockchain, it's fun and it's not overwhelming. And so hopefully they'll be like, okay, well, this isn't as bad as I thought. Let me come in, see what the water's like. They'll see that it's warm and inviting and stay in and swim for a bit. And then who knows, go out and create their own pond or their own swimming pool, so to speak. So that's how I see it. So going back to your interns, I wanted to ask you, how long do your interns generally intern for? Is it because you talked about sometimes they don't have the availability, therefore they can't commit? So is it just generally a summer internship? And if it is a summer internship, then how long is the internship for?
Yeah, a lot of students are looking for internships over the summer just because they don't have any courses or they have just like a few summer courses. So essentially, they're available and you kind of like sit around and you'd be like, okay, I want to do something more, right? And you want to add experience to your CV. So a lot of students, like most of the students will be looking for an internship in the summer. However, in this world where people are juggling different things, you see more and more students also who are looking for extracurricular internships next to their studies. Right? Because the people are realizing that you need more practical skills once you graduate to be able to land a job. And you rather prepare for that earlier than later.
Yes.
Right? So we also have students that are keen to do a part-time internship. So that would be 15 to 20 hours a week, next to their studies. And that could be, so the full-time internships are typically 2 to 3 months, I would say, right? And then the part-time internships could be also, 3 months, but could also extend to 6 months or sometimes even 9 months, right? So if you just kind of see that internship as a working student role, across your whole academic year, where you study and you also work, and you get like the best of both worlds in a way, right? Because the longer you stick with one organization or a company, the more you also see about what they're building, and you see how business works. You see how certain projects are being rolled out or come to fruition, and things like that. It just gives you more understanding of how business works, right? So we do see a mix of those, but I would still say the majority of students are looking for an internship pretty much now, until the end of August. And then, we'll have to see for the fall, which are the students who are looking then also for part-time working opportunities.
And so a lot of the roles that are being offered or that these students are looking for, digital marketing, business development. So when you talk about business development, because some people class business development as sales. So are we talking about sales, or are we talking about the generating of leads rather than the closing of leads, so to speak?
Yeah, it could be both. It depends on what the company actually needs and how skilled the intern is. Typically, interns are placed in the SDR sort of side of things. So it's like the generating leads, researching potential, clients or customers, prospects, etc. Maybe contacting them in the first instance, right, and following up with them and just starting to build that relationship. And then they hand over to either back to the founder, or maybe there is a sales manager around, and then that person would then close the lead. But then sometimes interns might also just kind of get involved in everything, basically, right? Depending on their skills, really, and how confident they are, like what leadership level they have. And oftentimes I have found actually how good their English is. And because we do work actually with a lot of international students, because it's actually those schools that encourage their students to do internships.
Yes,
right.
understood.
UK universities actually don't really do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do get a lot of interest from international students. They all speak English, but sometimes there's a little accent.
Yeah. And also,
Exactly.
what are the age groups? Are they generally, because I know sometimes you can have mature students, right? Or so do you have a mixture, a diverse?
Yeah, I would say the majority of our students are kind of like undergrad and master students, right? So I would say the age range is between like 21, 22 up to like 25, 26 type. But sometimes we also have MBA students occasionally when they have, their program, and then there is like a module as part of the program, which is an internship. And those people could be 30. So they could be a bit more experienced as well. Typically for MBA students, though, they would switch from another area, right? They probably would have studied a different area before and want to now move into business. So they are more experienced, but they might not they might be on the same level in terms of their business understanding, overall, right? It could be, people moving from tech, like coding to the business side of things. It could be people who move from finance to marketing or something like that, right? Which still doesn't, they have 10 years of finance experience, but they still don't have that much marketing experience.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
So that's why actually they are interested in internships, because I see sometimes, companies would be like, but this person has so much experience. I mean, why would they even consider an internship that also isn't that well paid, basically? Although because they don't have the exact skills that they actually need.
Yeah. Understood. Okay, so one other question. Have you heard of the Kickstarter UK government scheme? Right.
Yeah.
Do you run that? Is that something that you're looking to offer?
No, because so I from what I understood is the Kickstart program is a great program, but it was kind of like a one-off kind of thing to kind of sort of boost the economy back. Maybe they're extending it, to be fair, because it changes all the time, right? But they're mainly dealing with people who have not attended university and who are basically school leavers. And are unemployed and are looking for new opportunities, which is obviously a fantastic thing to do. I did not get involved with that because of my personal experience with apprentices. I had 2 apprentices before, and I just found sometimes there was a disconnect between their mindset and what I was hoping to get from them. I mean, they just if you are a school leaver, you have not gone to university. Not that that's like the academic knowledge that's missing, but it's more like the independence that's missing.
Got it.
Those people tend to still see work as like you go to school, you have a curriculum, you have a teacher who tells you what to do,
Yeah.
and you do that as a homework almost, and then you stop.
Yeah.
Right? You don't necessarily have the initiative. You don't have like you haven't participated in like proactiveness. You haven't like launched maybe like a student club, or you've organized stuff for like another student club or something like that, where you had to go out and create something for yourself. And that was actually the main difference that I saw between my apprentices and my interns, right? So it's more like that makes a difference to me in the attitude of people. And therefore I was like, well, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of kickstart apprentices and young people that are amazing, but the chances that you get the others is also quite high. So that's why I did not get involved in it. And I just basically focus on students and people who are, I don't know, like a little bit more open, I guess also more flexible, right? Because government programs are also, a bit more rigid, right? I'm more a person who likes creating like opportunities as we go along. And if I have to stick to a certain regime or a timeline, and then it gets postponed because of whatever, like I get quite antsy with that. So it's not like the best fit for my personality, I would say.
Yeah. Entrepreneur through and through. Flexible,
Exactly.
creative, innovative, can't deal with rules, basically. All right. Well, Luli, thank you so much for sharing your insights on, business growth, female founders, your online growth summit, and also, what you're offering with the Lunar Talents. I think it's great. And I think there's a lot of people who can benefit from it, who are listening to this now. Just to end, what three things would you say are, in your opinion, key elements of becoming, forget the female, right? Or even are key for female founders, but I know it's not necessarily about being female. It's just, this is what we look at. But what three tips of growth or just insights would you give to female founders or individuals who want to become founders and happen to be female?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think overall, if you are interested in something, right, like creating anything in any industry, any sector, any age, any stage in your life, whatever, like learn, like knowledge is like the foundation of everything. There's so much content online now where you can familiarize yourself with how other people did it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, basically. And and I think it will help you kind of like to find like the confidence and self-belief. That would be like the second one, right? Like once you've built up that knowledge and you kind of solidify your idea, you will have more confidence and self-belief, right? And then you have to keep that self-belief and optimism and positivity around your idea to kind of carry on, right? To do the next steps, right? But you have to in yourself feel that this is the right thing for me to do, right? If you're kind of like, oh, I'm not sure, then that energy is gonna just kind of like laid into whatever you're doing, and people will also not be kind of quite sure about what you're doing, right? So learning, the first step, building that self-belief into your idea or what you want to do. And the third part would be community, right? I mean, nobody on this planet does things on their own. We all need to be part of something. There's so much to be gained from other people, right? Whether it is, the knowledge part, or whether it's like emotional support, or just kind of like, whatever it is that you're looking for, it usually is provided by a supportive community. And don't think you have to do everything on your own. And don't be afraid to ask for help in the community as well, right? I think what I have seen with women in particular is that, I think we are kind of brought up in the way that we always want to be perfect. We always want to be seen that we know it all. We have it all shit together. Everything is kind of like, no problem. I'll get it done. And sometimes you just literally sit there and it's like, I don't get it. Like, why is that?
Yeah.
Like, or I don't know how to do that, basically, right? And in that moment, like, ask for help, like, ask other people. Like, it's not, it's not bad, basically.
Yeah.
So in that order, I would say, build up knowledge for yourself, build your self-confidence and believe in your idea, and then go out and find your community, build a network for yourself, join other communities, be part of something, so you're not doing this thing on your own.
So, I definitely agree with you, particularly with women. And there's a saying that I love, and that I always share. It's progress over perfection. And so sometimes you have to let go of the perfection and just move. And as you go along, you will you can perfect it. But also, I know that you are very much active in the entrepreneurial founding space. And I read something here, and it said, this is a quote by you: I think for every entrepreneur, leader, or someone with a corporate career, if you want to be truly successful in life, you have to live a life that's aligned with yourself, not with what society is telling you what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great quote to basically, to end on. So be brave, be bold, be in blockchain.
Exactly. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
And go out there.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for your time once again. All the best. And I look forward to continuing this conversation in different ways and different formats. Okay.
Great to speak to you today, Lavinia. Thanks so much again for having me.
You're welcome.